Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. We have three terrific people speaking on the call this afternoon, and I will introduce them in just a moment. But before we do that, just a couple of quick housekeeping things. So if we could move to the next slide. Just a reminder, we've got Channel Focus coming up on the 2nd, 3rd and 4th of November, and we will have over 200 people attending the event. So if you haven't registered, there's still a few places left. Make sure you are registered for the show. It will be live and it will have a great attendance. Jeannie, next slide. So if you look down the bottom, you have the ability to chat and basically ask your questions. We want this to be as lively as possible. You can also, as you can see there, raise your hand if you would like to ask a question live. So we want this to be as interactive as possible. So jump in with your questions. Next slide, Jeannie. So, and if you take down the slides, I'll go through from there. So our first speaker is Chanan Greenberg, and he's the SVP and General Manager for Technology for Model N. Chanan is focused on helping companies maximize profitable revenue and channel engagement. He's spent 15 years as the SVP and GM of high tech at Model N, and he held prior roles in sales, industry marketing, and corporate strategy. And over his career, he's worked with over 100 companies on pricing and channel initiatives. Prior to Model N, he was the CEO and founder of Privia and the CEO and chairman of Click Online. So Chanan, briefly tell us a little bit about Model N.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here. A couple of words about Model N. Model N is a 21-year-old software company based in Silicon Valley. We service two industries, one focused on life sciences, where we cover pharmaceutical and medical device. We today service 48 of the top 50 global pharmaceutical companies. And the part of the business that I run is focused on technology, where we service companies ranging from companies in the consumer electronics space, storage, networking, wireless, semiconductor and components, and so on and so forth. And we provide these companies with an offering that covers everything from global pricing, deal management, SPA debits or special pricing into the channel, through to channel data management and channel incentive programs like MDFs and rebates, all on one integrated platform. It's a pleasure to be here and to be here with my distinguished colleagues.
Thank you very much, Chanan. And our second speaker is TC Doyle. For many of you, TC will require very little introduction. He's been a 30-year industry veteran, a long-time journalist. He's a former editor-at-large with Cisco, and he also ghost-wrote a New York Times thought leadership book, which was a bestseller and also was published by the Financial Times Press. He's now the channel growth evangelist at Impartner. So TC, tell us a little bit about Impartner.
Greetings, everyone. Good to see a lot of familiar names in the list of attendees. So welcome. Impartner, we're a world leader in partner automation platforms and software. Our mission is to help vendors, be they small startups, be they emerging companies, be they global giants in a variety of industries, automate their platforms so they can provide partners the world over world-class experiences to help them grow, advance their business. We do it from everything from through channel marketing automation to newsletters on demand, and our core PRM platform, which is fully integrated with Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, and a variety of other platforms. Rod, pleasure to be here. And as Chanan said, good to be with such distinguished company.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, TC. And our third speaker is Richard Flynn, and he's co-founder and CMO for the Spur Group. Richard's the founder of the Spur Group, an industry veteran, also with nearly 30 years experience. And during that time, he's helped many companies in the tech industry shape and execute their channel strategies and go-to-market approaches. He's a firm believer that we need a new renaissance of channel innovation as companies redefine their go-to-market approach. And in his off time, Richard focuses on family, painting, and architecture. Richard, tell us a little bit about the Spur Group.
Yeah, so the Spur Group, we're a consulting firm that focuses on exclusively how companies go to market. And so we've got about 300 consultants now, and we help large companies like NetApp and Microsoft and Cisco and VMware, but we also work with a lot of companies that have, you know, very explosive growth, but are looking to kind of standardize and create processes, UiPath, Cohesity. So we have a wide range of clients. And, you know, many of them are very interested in solving in this space. So we've had a lot of opportunity to see, you know, how to work with this type of partner in this type of situation across the spectrum of clients.
Fabulous. So we're here today to talk about how do you create and support a program to drive consumption. So Chanan, if I can start with you, let's define what we mean by consumption to start with.
Well, the definition of consumption can change slightly by the company. When you think of software companies, which I think there's a predominance of people from that space here, you'll primarily look at the consumption of or the usage of the seats or licenses, or however the offering is licensed and subscribed to by the customers. And you can also expand that to other services that sometimes are tied to those baseline subscriptions. And when you look at it from a broader standpoint, you might be looking at volume consumption. You might be looking at certain value consumption. If you're talking about other areas of volume compliance, you might see in more standard manufacturing. And it really is tied to, you know, this consumption aspect really ties to one of the things that I think is the most important aspect aside of winning new business. Most of the companies here know how important it is to acquire new customers and what is the cost of acquiring new customers. Leveraging existing customers and maximizing the revenue that comes from them, and obviously service through the channel, is probably the second most important lever companies have in terms of creating a good high value revenue mix with frankly a lower cost of acquiring that additional revenue. So consumption is incredibly important.
Fabulous. And TC, if I can come to you on this one, consumption has become a huge issue over the last few years. Why is that? What are your customers seeing? What are they asking for? And what do you think are the challenges?
Well, before I get to that, and I will get to that, I'm not going to duck and pivot, but let me buttress what Chanan just said about the definition of consumption. We come at it from a software developer's perspective, a software developer that makes software specifically to help other vendors help their partners. Now that sounds like I'm pivoting and say, oh yeah, every problem you see out there, because you guys make hammer, looks like a nail. But if you think about it, our definition of consumption is how the men and women who are on this call today, their partner programs are being consumed, because we believe that consumption leads to greater sales consumption, greater licenses, greater services. So if you allow me some license, no pun intended, I think we've got a dual issue here. We have consumption the way Chanan describes it so intelligently and capably about getting those sales licenses, those services, but it's also getting greater consumption within the partner programs through automation that helps drive those greater consumption. So to answer your question, Rod, directly, there's a lot of issues at stake here today. We have different partner models that are evolving and that are changing. We have different vendor go-to-market motions and models. And we have new innovation coming to fore. You mix all three of those and layer on top that spans across the global pandemic that just happened and still is ongoing. We were discussing at the onset prior to going live today about its downstream ramifications that continue to this day. When you take all of those multi-trends, you realize at the end of the day, consumption is a number one challenge that many organizations have. Getting it right, automating it, applying best practices. There's a whole raft of things that I know we're going to get to, but those are my top line thoughts.
Okay, and Richard, a lot of the industry is moving to AAS, consumption is a big part of that and a big challenge. Why is that?
Oh, I think it's kind of two factors. Obviously, more companies are moving to cloud-based revenue model, even if they're hardware companies, and so that is fueling it. But I think that primarily it's that partners have changed. They are themselves looking at how they model the economics of their business. And it's moved away from transactions. It's moved away from, the old legacy model for all the partners that matter. I mean, there are still some that don't, but for the partners that matter. And, that's changed the flavor of really what partners are delivering to their customers. It's really all about, are you delivering value and are you delivering a great experience? And the vendors, tied to what we're about to talk about, that can help those partners both experience a great situation and provide that value to their customers are the companies that are really seeing success as things are moving forward in this direction.
Okay. And if you look at this, the key is, how do we track it? And Richard, I've got you on screen at the moment, so I'll stick with you for just a moment. How are people going about tracking consumption of their products inside the customers?
Well, it's funny. I'm a numbers geek deep down, and so give me an Excel spreadsheet, and I get very happy. And in many ways, this is actually more trackable than in the past, because it's really, if you're unfamiliar with the term, it's about negative churn. It's how many customers do you have? How many customers do you keep? How much revenue are you generating from those customers on a reoccurring basis? And a little bit in terms of, what's the cost to acquire those, companies? And that creates a very simple math model that you can actually automate, that you can drive AI around, that you can do all sorts of other things. So it's easy to look at the numbers, and a little bit of a plug for the systems and processes that are sold by the other folks on the call. Having that underlying system that now lets you connect the partner record to the customer record to the transaction records, and gathering and driving the insight around that is more doable today than it's ever been in the past.
Mm-hmm. And Chanan, if I can come to you, one of the comments I get from the partners is, okay, I've got vendors that really want me to act on consumption. Renewals are incredibly important for my business because my business value is based around recurring revenue. Mm-hmm. I just haven't got sight of what's going on. Who's doing it? Not necessarily naming names, but who's doing it right? Who's giving the partners the right information?
I think the ones who are doing it right are the ones who are combining, and again, sort of a soft plug and a plug for TC here, but combining the data that can come from a channel data management solution like Model M provides, embedded inside a PRM platform like TC and the platform that TC works for, which is Impartner. And the reason is you need to be able, kind of tying it back also to what Richard just said, you have a wealth of data available to you, especially for software players where the activation of the license or the number of users or the number of logons, all these things are already trackable in the product. But even those who do not have that sort of data available, and we're still talking about more traditional inventory moving of more physical products moving, that data is still available in the form of inventory information and POS information. Making sure you have it on a timely basis, which is no less than weekly, sometimes even faster. We know people working on daily cycles, but definitely weekly cycles, making sure that it is truly cleansed and accurate, and then putting it into a context that has a meaning that can actually tie it back to, as TC said earlier, we're not talking just about customer consumption of the product. It could also be the leading indicator of the channel consumption of the program, which would lead to the sales. You can tie those things. You can tie the rebate programs and the actual data from the end customers back into the performance of the channel. and see the trend change over time on a weekly basis to really get meaningful insights. And then it's about making it accessible through a PRM platform or other means of pushing that information back into the channel to show them, here's what your efforts are producing, here, indicating what might need to change or do more of what you're doing.
Rod, if you step back and you listen to what both gentlemen are saying, let's take the compliment and thank you guys for my technology out of the equation. Let's take that off the table for a second. If you step back though and listen to what both Chanan and Richard are saying, they're saying get the channel involved to help drive that consumption. So why is that not obvious? Well, today, through line of business buying, that used to be an existential threat, and it really threatened a lot of channel companies, and it really made a lot of vendors think twice. Well, should I be going with an all-channel model? At what point in my company's maturity should I start embracing a channel? But like a Malcolm Gladwell Outliers event, that existential threat flipped. How did that happen? Well, customers with credit cards went out and bought one of everything. They bought all kinds of automation here, all kinds of automation there. And IT was left going, I don't know what you guys have bought. I don't know whether that is secure, whether it's compliant, whether it's backed up. So all of that has come back into IT, and an overwhelmed IT department, what have they done? They've turned to their trusted third-party advisors. So what was an existential threat to the channel turned out to be one of the best things that's happened to it in a long time. They're now in the loop for those renewals, for guaranteeing compensation, for making sure customers haven't bought, for driving utilization. So again, take my company's platform out of it. But if you listen to the wisdom of what they're both saying, they're saying get those channel partners involved to not just drive consumption, but also play an integral role in the renewals, reducing that churn, upping utilization. So whatever program, strategy, or technology automation platform you embrace, make sure those channel partners are embedded in that, automated to drive your success.
And Rod, if I could pile onto that for just
if I could just stop you for a sec there, Richard, just a reminder to everyone, just go into that chat button. We've got a lot of really good stuff coming out from the panelists. If you want to ask your own questions, go into the chat, ask the question. Sorry, Richard, back to you.
Yeah, I was just going to pile onto that for just a moment. And again, from a programmatic point of view now, when you're thinking about it, is you really need to be having a conversation with your sales folks about how they're creating a co-selling motion with those partners, to TC's point, because what we have seen is that those companies that are really embracing that partnership are recognizing that the customers are looking for multiple vendors. They're looking for additional value add that the partner is going to be driving. The times and dates that the one infrastructure, buy was kind of defining the entirety of the transaction has disappeared. And so by restructuring their commission structure, restructuring how they set their internal quotas so that they recognize the partnership revenue that's being focused as in part of that, is game changing. And we've seen that at Microsoft, at AWS, at, more of the platform companies, but it is spilling out into, the other parts. And it's a change of mentality from the us versus them of, is this a direct or is this a partner sale? And who's in the leadership position, in terms of that sale, into much more of a, hey, let's just sit down and figure out how to sell all of our stuff, to the customers and do what's best for them, because ultimately they'll buy more.
If I can just add one data point to support what TC and Richard just said. And I think I'm quoting a Forrester report here that said that Microsoft signed up 7,000 new partners, 80% of which were not transacting partners. In other words, they weren't actually the ones selling the Microsoft product, but they were involved in either influencing the decision to select the Microsoft product or in post-sales services and ongoing support of that product. And that goes to TC's point, which is these guys are involved, whether we like it or not, especially to what you were asking about, Rod, about the ongoing usage and consumption of the product and the support of the product, and hence impacting the renewal. And therefore, you have to take these companies into account when you're planning your programs and design to include them.
So TC, picking up on Hanan's point there, how do you decide who to let in and who to give the information to? Because influence has become absolutely phenomenal. There are a lot of partners out there who won't buy and sell product anymore, but they are absolutely key to whether your product is implemented and whether it's actually used by the customer.
Well, I think if they add value, you let them in. And if they're not, miscreants and disruptors that are, there to cause trouble, get them in. You have to, because the models are changing. The go-to-market motions are changing. And if they can create value, then you must create a strategy, programs, and then automate the hell out of it so you can measure and monitor and help nurture and grow the value that they provide to the table. We work with hundreds of companies. We've done thousands of partner installations, and the number of traditional programs that we work with is still a high percent. They're thinking in terms of volume sales, and that's, in the West, it's platinum, gold, and silver, and other parts of the world, it might be gemstones, but whatever, it's always tied still to this day to revenue. And to me, it should be tied to value. How do you treat and not give and lavish upon a partner that is unrivaled technological excellence if you're selling into the tech space? Or maybe they have access to the key named accounts you're trying to drive into. Maybe they are on some government schedule that you can't get on yourself, or they're great at competitive flipping where they provide unrivaled customer service. There are different ways to recognize value contribution other than mere volume sales. If you develop sophistication, programs, strategies, and then automate it, that will carry you so much further and so much faster in the marketplace than the traditional old way of looking at it. So when we work with organizations, our software is leveraging opinionated principles. These are based on real world examples. Opinionated might sound like a negative. We like to think of it as informed, but software programmers call it opinionated. It's basically embedded best practices, whether you use our technologies or somebody else's. We hope it's ours. But automate, get those best practices in there so you can recognize value that people are providing. That's, Rod, how I would say. If they add value, let them in and leverage it.
And Richard, a big part of this is driving consumption. A lot of people would call it a customer success function. How have you seen people educating and helping partners build that customer success function?
It's funny because I might be taking this in a slightly different direction than you intended if I ask me the question. I actually think that partners are usually better at succeeding with their customers than the vendors are at explaining how to be successful, with the customers. They're usually closer and they usually have a better understanding. What we're seeing is the focus with the vendors is that for the first time, a lot of them are thinking about partner success metrics and partner success reps. And they're recognizing that, in the olden days, you defined yourself as a partner by the vendor that you sold. I am dating myself, but I remember when that IBM medallion was, worth millions of dollars, and it was a commodity that was bought and sold like a taxi medallion in New York City. That's changed. Now it's all about the technology stack, and are you a member of that technology stack? And as partners are looking at it, they are looking at the experience that they get. So if all of your reps have visibility into the information, through a PRM system like Impartner, or they can talk to them about the intelligent uses and how they go after various different things, like Model N helps, around those types of experiences really drive it. And having an ability to shape that partner experience and streamline it and improve it, simplify it, make it easy to do business, making sure that you don't have accidental conflict with, those are the types of things that we're seeing is really, where people need to be focusing to really differentiate themselves in the market.
Mm-hmm. And Chanan, talk to us about best practice in terms of measuring and sharing this.
So I think it starts with the data. Obviously, you need to have the information, whether it's down to the actual usage information from within the product that you're selling, or whether it's the sale information that is coming from the channel. And again, where applicable, if it's a physical product, then inventory as well. And that information needs to be of very high quality. When you look at the averages, and there's a recent study that was done by also by Forrester, that the accuracy of channel data coming back into the companies is between 40 to 50%, which, I mean, if just stop and think about what I've just said, it's like flipping a coin. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. And you're going to be making decisions on sales and marketing investments and incentive programs and paying out commissions and paying out incentives into the channel based on something which is no better than flipping a coin, which should not be acceptable to anyone, frankly. And in our experience, it is quite possible, and we've done it many times, to bring that accuracy of the data to around 95% or even better. So it's doable. You just need to apply some process and get the right tools in place. Once you have the data, this data can be used in many ways. And I'll just give you a couple of very specific use case scenarios. And I'll use some that are relevant to us and some that are relevant to Impartner, I think, which I think could be quite interesting. One is tying it back to the performance of the programs. You're trying to understand the adoption of the programs, understand which programs, because you may have many. We deal with some companies that have as many as 2,000 different incentive programs at any given moment within a single company. Now, it's like a black box. You know that you're spending the money. You can measure that. You know what you're getting at the back end. But which one of those 2,000 really moved the needle? Which one made a difference? Which one was just, a free giveaway? That is where it gets complex. And when you are able in one central system to track the different programs, correlate the specific changes over time since the introduction of the program to the specifics of what the program was trying to accomplish, based on the channel data you're getting back, you're able to create what we call an incentive program intelligence view of what is working, what isn't working, and which programs are of high value, not only for the vendor, but also for the channel, because you'll be successful if your channel is successful. So you want to measure those elements. And to your question about pushing it out, you want to push that out either through a portal, you could be using Salesforce communities or something like that to push that information out, because making that readily available on a weekly basis to the channel gives them the feedback they need to understand what's working, what isn't working, and gives them the visibility into what they will be attaining in terms of payouts and things like that. But there are some more interesting, I think, use cases, especially when you tie this data back into a PRM platform. And I'll just give two examples here. One is you can do through channel marketing, okay, and various marketing programs through the channel. And these create leads, and you want to see what is converting into revenue. Well, that channel data, that POS data coming back in, is the way to close that loop and see, here's what started from marketing. Here are the leads that were generated. Here is the actual business that closed against that. You create an interesting view of that inside PRM, again with Impartner, and you have a very meaningful platform for your next QBR with your channel about what's been transpiring, what's been working. Another way, pardon me, is to close the loop based on the data in terms of what the channel is qualifying for, in terms of the level or their compliance to certain performances that mean, again, using the terms that we heard before, like platinum or gold. That data can be mapped back to close that loop and give a data-driven, transactional-driven view of that information. There are many, many other scenarios, by the way, of how these pieces can come together. So whether it's through a PRM platform or an external portal, it's vital to push that information back to the channel and make it readily available to them, because that gives them instant feedback on what they're doing.
Okay, and I've got a great question coming from William McInnes. One of the key challenges I am seeing is with sharing essential adoption consumption data with the partner of record. GDPR challenges are being raised specifically on deals where the deals are partner-led and partner transacted. What are your recommendations for driving an understanding of consumption when the consumption data is owned by the software provider as opposed to the partner? Who wants to come in on this one? And Chanan, let me maybe hand over to TC to have a pop at this one.
I'm going to have to punt. Not an expert in this realm. I just can't address that.
I can answer at least some of it. I think that there's a couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, there are some exceptions to GDPR, and one of those big exceptions is actual customer information. So you have to be careful about sending information on individuals, but you can generally send information based on this customer is buying at this level,
exactly
from that point of view. So usually at a GDPR process, you can share a lot of that information as long as you don't say, and this is the individual who bought it, from that point of view. But even there, you can sometimes even share that information. So I think that a big thing that they should be looking at is to make sure that their GDPR is perhaps not a little overly restrictive in terms of, the information, because customer information you can share back and forth. I think, Chanan, you were going to add something.
Yeah, so we by the nature of our solution, because we're dealing with all of this channel data and customer data, we are dealing with GDPR restrictions virtually on a daily basis. And in fact, for those listening and interested, there's a new law that's about to pass this month, driven by the UK, regarding
Sorry,
the
chaps.
Yeah, and so Model N is actually constantly, pardon me, updating our compliance contract with GDPR almost every other month for the last year. And it's visible, it's on the website, and customers can see the updates because we obviously have to comply with the various laws. And I agree with what Richard said. Number one, there are ways, not working around GDPR, because that can be interpreted incorrectly.
Working within GDPR.
Working within and being compliant, but still giving them meaningful data. One way is simply creating the aggregates. So, when you're dealing with software, for example, and theoretically you could be getting user information, but you don't have to share that user information with a channel, or if the channel is the one passing on the information, they don't have to pass that through. Well, what you could be looking at is the aggregate of the number of licenses. And when you're dealing with all the, whatever other measure you have for the consumption. And so as long as you're dealing with it at that level, you're still getting the business insight you're looking to get, which is meaningful for you and meaningful for the channel without breaking any laws and breaking any rules. In some cases, when we sometimes get the data that we never asked for, that would put us in a non-compliance situation, we actually have to put filters in place to kill that data. We just delete it on the submission, and it never passes through to us, never passes through to the vendor or to the channel. So we have to go through some pains to remain compliant. There's also, just to add a little more complexity, there's now some more extreme interpretation of GDPR that is saying that even if the end user information is from an entity that is outside the EU, if it is an EU entity that is consuming the data, they still have to be GDPR compliant, even though the person's information came out from outside the EU, let's say from South America. So again, it's the key point is there are ways, both mechanical ways, to eliminate information that would make you non-compliant and still not lose any of the meaningful business insights you're looking to get as a vendor or to share with your channel.
Fabulous. William, there's some very cool answers for you. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and obviously the big thing that is key here is how do you reward and motivate the partners for this? Traditionally, a lot of the reward has been around the upfront sale. Obviously now, in a renewals situation, you've got ongoing support, and you've also got the renewal itself. So TC, if I can bring you in on this one, because I know this is very much your expertise, where should those rewards be going? How should you be paying the partner? What should you be paying them for?
Well, I think I go back to what I said earlier. You've got to pay them for the value. So you have to have mechanisms in place that recognize and can distinguish and tease out their contributions. Without that, you're lost. Going back to what Chanan was saying, which I think the most interesting things, the note that I took was that whole analogy of flipping the coin. You've got data for the first time at your disposal, but we sometimes see people using data in an incorrect way. What do I mean by that? They sometimes can optimize around the wrong thing. We're optimizing around logins, or we're optimizing around asset consumption, time spent on our site. Remember, at the end of the day, we're trying to optimize consumption of the innovation, the ideas, the technology. So you're trying your level best to create a value system that optimizes the right thing using data. So if you back that all back and layer in what I know Richard knows oh so well about the dynamics that's happening with the partners today, they're not really always interested in deal registration. It's a core part of our technology, and we have clients that use that each and every day. But some partners aren't. Some partners are leveraging other things. So at the end of the day, to answer your question directly, you've got to be able to recognize the value they're creating, and you've got to be able to monetize that. So it's incentives, it's rewards after the fact, but it might be softer rewards. If what their value doesn't translate well into a financial reward, either at the front end or the back end, you must, maybe it's backfilling to allow them to train and certify their people so you can help advance them, grow their practices. Maybe it's giving them more expertise in co-selling motions that Richard talked about earlier that'll help them land bigger deals or more accounts. There are different forms of value rewards that you can provide. You've just got to back out and figure out how the best to apply those.
Okay. And Richard, one of the things I know has been a big debate in the industry is renewals. Should we be paying for renewals?
Yes, simple answer. Let me go into a little bit more detail. When you think about consumption, the whole idea behind consumption is that I want you to be spending more money with me next month than you are this month. If you're not rewarding that through your partner program and through your partner efforts at the partner level, why would they ever drive that? And so what we've seen, and this is a hard pill for many companies to swallow, is that it's shifting away from net new logos, and it's shifting more to driving increased revenue within existing customers. Doesn't mean net new logos aren't important. You want to have that. But if all of your compensation, acts towards net new logos and doesn't, that's a problem. And I'm going to call out like Sage Intact here for just a moment. They were one of the first companies that said, hey, look, we're going to pay you as much on renewals as we do for that net new business. And it is one of the driving factors as to why they established themselves against huge competitors, because they recognized that this was about building an ongoing relationship with the partner and making sure that that partner was constantly building value within their customer, and that would return and create and drive consumption for them as a vendor. And that's the model that you got to be thinking of as a partner, or excuse me, as a vendor.
Richard, if I can ask you a question, I see this time and again, and I'm puzzled by it. For some reason, vendors have an intuitive sense of how much they should reward a license sale, but they're befuddled when it comes to a renewal. And in some instances, most, they want to reward it less. So why is that? Why are they not getting it? What's the disconnect?
Well, I hate to say it, it's probably a generational thing. And, let's face it, most CROs, and for that matter, channel chiefs, came from a sales background, and they've been in the industry for 20, 25 years. And it was really all about rewarding partners to land that big next deal. And when it's all about rewarding that big next deal, that does drive you to, well, how many customer ads are you doing? And what's the next transaction that you're going to be, doing? But that's changed. And it's just, it's an important part of the business. You can't close your pipeline. You always need to be adding new accounts, but you have to recognize that, and it's not just for the partner, it's also for the vendor. The cost of acquisition is always less on an existing customer. And as long as you can constantly be building that lifetime value, you're just printing money. It's the whole concept behind, the renewable revenue model is that those two, immutable laws exist, and you need to kind of, focus on that.
Yes, translation, that's going to get me in trouble. Sorry, Yankee fans. Some of those singles, doubles, and triples add up at the end of the night. So
yeah, And a twist on it is if you get people to be a little bit concerned about just paying on renewals, make it about growth within the accounts. Make it about whether or not you're seeing, again, that negative churn, which is a good thing. Are you seeing more revenue per customer? And you can have it be based on that a little bit more than necessarily did they just do a renewal if you're have some issues that are internally a little hard to sell.
Excellent. We're almost out of time, so I'm just going to ask for one abiding thing that you guys, each of you, think people should be thinking about when it comes to consumption. So Chanan, start with you. In 1 minute, what's the thing that you think, wow, this is what we should be doing?
I'm going to say two things, but I'll keep it in 1 minute. The first thing is, as a plug for the Channel Focus Conference, there is going to be a session about programs and how to drive recurring revenue through incentive programs in the channel, which Model N will be presenting. So I encourage people to attend, and there'll be a lot more detail about the design of programs for that there. Specifically to your question, Rod, I think that it's vital that companies take the time to reevaluate and understand what is their customers' buying journey in the new world, with new different types of influencers and post-service providers or support entities that might be involved in supporting them and impacting both the pre-sales, the sale, and the post-sale world of that customer. That will inform, the kind of channels you need to have, because maybe the current subset of channels that you have are not the right ones for the future. And it'll also inform the programs you need to design, both for the activities you want to see certain channels do in pre-sales and the activities you want to see channels do, channel partners do in the post-sale world, helping you drive renewals and growth, as Richard was talking about. Understanding that journey of the customer is the source of informing all of that. And that's where I think you should spend time.
Excellent. TC, same question to you. What's the one abiding thing on this topic people should be really focused on?
Well, I'm going to steal from both gentlemen. I have two. One's a hard one, one's a soft one. Stealing from Hanan's analogy of flipping the coin, he's absolutely right. Today, you have the opportunity of a lifetime to base decision on real data. To get yourself into a place to do that, you need to invest in world-class automation that gives you that automated decision-making based on real data. The softer one, though, talks about what Richard was saying. He mentioned the word experiences. As we have seen the importance of customer experience grow, and in fact, a lot of channel partners, if you read the CompTIA 2021 State of the Channel, a lot of partners are going to market competing principally on the amount and quality of customer experiences they provide. Well, as they have focused and doubled down on that portion of their business, they've woke up a little bit more to the kind of partner experiences they're getting. So the hard one, base your decisions on automated data. The softer one, give credence to creating world-class partner experiences, reduce friction out of your business. You'll find yourself in a much better place to drive consumption.
And last but by no means least, Richard.
So I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to repeat a little bit about what I heard before and give them my own. We are not. I just want to preface: we're not a software company. That said, get the right software. If you don't have the right infrastructure to really make sure that all of your people are on the same page, that you're sharing information with your partners, that you're being able to provide them insight, it's really hard to execute in today's model. So that's the first easy one. The second one is a little bit harder, and that is just recognize that this is a change in mentality. Everybody, kind of builds this three-tier pyramid where the top is the direct model and the bottom is the partner only model, and then they've got that soft middle, which is where we work with partners. We are seeing that all the companies that are having explosive growth are getting that middle part right more than they are about the top and the bottom. And that's a new play. It's a change of mentality. It's how am I really figuring out and focusing how to work with partners to accomplish customer objectives. And that's the most important, part of the equation. And that takes some internal alignment. It takes some internal education. It takes some internal reporting to show that you're, producing the results. But that I think is the secret sauce on top of having the right system.
Fabulous. Chanan, Richard, TC, thank you for some amazing comments, some really terrific insights. And as the webinar closes, you'll be asked to complete a survey. If you could please just take 2 or 3 minutes. Part of our understanding of customer satisfaction is your feedback on that survey. So please take 2 or 3 minutes to do that. But once again, Chanan, Richard, TC, terrific insights. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you all. Bye.
Great. Bye-bye.
And ladies and gentlemen, the webinar will now close.